Welcome to the R video tutorial on working with text in R Part 2. If you haven't watched Part 1, you might want to go back and do that. We're going to use the mifish.csv dataset that we used in the last video. It's linked in the description below to go to the repository so you can fish it out of there. And I've got the code to read this in and we can look at the data. So I'm going to run this real quick. Notice that my data, I'm just looking at the header of it, it has species, location, and that all of this is text. None of these are specific number values. Yes, SC1 has a 1 in it, but it's really a character. So what I want to do is be able to work with these, and what I want to do specifically is be able to search through these. In the last one, we figured out how to grab specific locations in a character string, but here I want to go down through my entire data set, and I want to say, how do I find something that has this specific criteria? So the function we're going to use right now is grep, okay? Don't ask me what it means, but it's something from Linux, and we're going to just run with it. You're going to put the pattern you're looking for. I'm particularly interested in bass, okay, because I have largemouth bass and smallmouth bass. So you can see smallmouth bass and largemouth bass. Now what I want to do is I actually just want to put the word bass in there, and then what I want to do is put in my data set that I'm interested in. Where am I going to look for this at? So I'm going to go look somewhere, and I'm going to look in the species. And what this will do when I run this is it returns every single row that has the word bass in it. Anywhere in the character string, if bass shows up, it's going to give it to me. And if you don't believe this, let's just look at this real quick. So I'm going to call this bass1. I'm going to write it into my index here into bass1, and then I'm going to just do mifish1, and then I'm going to do the rows bass1, because these are row indexes that tell me where this exists, and I'm going to put a comma because I want to get both columns. Now when I run this, let's see what shows up here. Notice that everything that shows up here has the word bass in it. Now whether it's largemouth or smallmouth, no matter the location, if it has the word bass in it, I've got it. Now this is really handy if you're dealing with text and you need to search through a lot of text in lots of fields, because it's just going to run down through each one and tell you which one has that word so you can keep moving with it. Okay, this is really, really handy. Now, this is useful for other things as well, but just being able to search down through there is really handy. So let's put in here, search through a data set for a specific string value. Okay, so we have the string and we have the data set. Okay, now in a specific one, a specific data set, we may actually be interested in, or a specific string, where the word bass shows up. And there's a different thing for that. So to find out where the actual character begins, to find where a substring begins. Okay, this is what we're interested in here, and the reason we're interested in it, if you remember from the last video, you had to know where to start and know where to stop. Okay, so in a specific string, we want to know where something begins, and there's this regexpr, okay, and I spelled it wrong. So this, it will give us a specific pattern we're looking for. So I'm interested in bass, and it's going to tell me and I'm going to put in here fish1 $species. And we're going to see what this produces. This will produce something slightly different than the last one. So I run this, and you can see in here I have -1s, and I have 4s, and 4s, and 4s, and -1s. What do you think the -1 is telling people? So, well, let's just try to match it up real quick with this. So let's just look at the first 10 of these, and then we'll look at the first 10 of our data set. So mifish1 species, and we'll look at the first 10 of those. And then we can kind of figure out what this thing is doing. So let's see, I had 3 -1. Well, catfish doesn't even have the word bass in it, so it doesn't know what number to give you. So it just says, no, I'm not going to give you anything. So notice that 3, it's where bass starts here. But if you notice, there were some of them that had 4 in it as well. So this is a bit interesting that we have different bass here that would have that in there. So we can look to see what we have. So this tells us where it begins or ends. So we can actually use this to our advantage, especially if we're looking through a specific string. So this one we ran down through all the data set. But I can put any string I want in here and get this a location of where it begins out of it, okay? If you remember from the last one, we would say, give me the second location. Well, what we could do is we can chain these together with our grep and say, give me the rows that have the word bass in it, and then we can use this to find out where in that string bass is actually located. So you can chain these things together. So if I looked at my bass1, if you remember, bass1 here, that gives me the indexes. And then if I have mifish1, which I will call, I'm going to take this one because I have bass1. I'm going to chain this ID together, and I'm going to call this bass2. Why? Because this actually has the data set with it in it. So I have bass2. If I look at bass2, bass2 gives me all the places that there are bass. The word bass shows up, it's going to be in here. And then what I could do with this is I can look in bass2. So I can do regexpr for the word bass, and I can do I want to do bass2 $species. And this will tell me all the places where this begins. So you can see it says it begins at 4. That's a bit odd. Okay, notice it says the match length. So that's why we were getting 4 in the other one. So all of these are starting at 3, but it tells it how much farther it goes. So if I wanted to subset that out, I can say, well, where does it begin? And then I can grab the third character, and then I can go up 4 more characters and pull that out, and that will give me the word bass if I were trying to pull it out of each one. But it gives us a way to chain these things together. Now, another thing that we're going to be interested in that you really need to be careful of is when you're dealing with text. Text is case sensitive. So we're dealing with the English language here. We have capital letters and lowercase letters. And when you're looking at a text string, it's looking and saying, is it capital or not? So what we might have to do is put things in lowercase. So there is a function toLower, and what this will do is put everything in lowercase. So I'm going to just do here bass2 species, and you can see what toLower does. So toLower, when I run this, notice everything's in lowercase now. Before, it was in uppercase. So if I were to run this bass2 here, you can see I have lowercase and uppercase. Lowercase and uppercase in the same word. But when I do toLower, I get just lowercase. So if I'm trying to do string matching, being lowercase really helps, okay? Just keep that in mind if you're looking for a word and you don't know whether it's uppercase or lowercase or partially uppercase or partially lowercase. That's why this data set is constructed this way, or I picked it, is because it's both uppercase and lowercase. So if you're going to do a search for a word, you might want to do toLower first in order to move everything to lowercase. So we could put a little comment here, makes the text all in lowercase. Okay, and let's see if there's toupper. So toupper, what do you think that will do? Well, let's see. What does toupper do? It makes everything in uppercase. It's another way to search things, okay? So you can either make everything uppercase or lowercase. So it makes the text all uppercase. All right, so this has probably been long enough for this video, but hopefully you're learning that you can search through things, and when you're going to search through things, you're going to need to make sure that everything is in case sensitive. So there'll be another video at the end of this that kind of combines these ideas together, so you can see how to chain all of these ideas together to actually do something kind of useful. All right, so we can move on to the next video.